Hello, my wonderful witches. Welcome back to In the Mist by Analia. Analia Raven here. And like I said, I'm back in my last video. So I'm here with another video for you guys. And yeah, I was rewatching my video, my Cycle 1 overview video, and I left off with psychic skills, about ready to go into magic before my dog barked. And I tried to pause the video, but instead I stopped it. And so, yeah, sorry about the interruption and the long, very long delay. Um, so, all right, let's just hop right into it. And so I left off with psychic skills, talking about my overview in Cycle 1 on WTI, or the Women's Theological Institute. If you want more information, you can check out some of my earlier videos or watch my Part 1 on WTI overview on my channel, In the Mist by Analia. Yes. So I talked about my goddesses, my experiences, well, shortly, brief experiences with the goddesses that I decided 10 for my cycle 1. I told you guys that we had to pick, 10 goddesses each cycle. And yeah, and then I talked about my psychic skills and what I learned about that going into spirit communication. And now I'm going to talk to you about the magic portion or class that you have to take on WTI. And like I said, I don't know if I said this in the last video, but WTI, or Women's Theological Institute, is a very, yes, you go to 2 weekends a year, or advising weekends, if you like to call it. And you can get support from your community or community of practitioners or wherever spirituality they come from, because it's a multi-traditional, group. But it's more like you make your own lesson plan, and then you talk to your advisor, and they pretty much give you the stamp, the okay stamp, and then you go on, and at your next advising weekend, you bring it all back and show them what you learned. Simple as that. All right, so cycle 1, part 2, and I have my coffee, my signature drink. All right, so the magic that I chose, or the magic path that I chose to study this time, because like I said, I've studied witchcraft and Wicca and paganism for 8 years prior to joining WTI. And so I had to really think really hard on what type of magic I wanted to study, and I didn't want it to be the same that I've already studied, because I figured that would be kind of like cheating in a way. So I decided to do a complete history of magic and witchcraft, and I focused on our very early ancestors. And I don't know if they probably didn't call it magic, because I mean, back then it was like a way of life with them. And so I'm calling it magic because, in my personal opinion, I think that a way of life can be magical. So, and so they mainly focused on fertility and, hunting and gathering. The hunting and gathering communities or tribes, sorry, they basically focused on fertility and hunting and gathering, and that was their way of life. And so they saw women as, these magical forces or mysterious forces, because they could give birth to children, and also they controlled the forces of life and death, because they can give birth, or if women gave birth to a stillborn, that would be, some tragic and everything. And I'm sorry if that upsets anyone, but that's the way it was back then. I mean, women were the life and death balancer, if you will. And I traced it all the way back in a timeline, BC to AD, present day magic like occultism and Wicca, Gerald Gardner's Wicca. I didn't really go into the Wicca of today, because in my opinion, I think that Wicca in Gardner's time was different from Wicca in today's world. And that's what I did for magic. It was just studying. I did kind of step my cycle 1 bounds and moved a little bit into cycle 2 when I presented this essay or research topic, which was huge and broad, and I should have narrowed it down, but I didn't. To my in one of my advising weekends as a workshop. Um, and I also studied a little bit in magic of Esbat work and some shadow work and some crystals and herbology to go along with that. Because you know, back back when I was solitary, I really didn't focus on Esbat work. I studied it, but I didn't like focus on it, and I didn't practice any like full moon or new moon rituals. I don't know why. I guess it didn't really call to me. So, and then moving on to AOL, your third or fourth lesson, which stands for Administration, Organization, and Leadership. And I do have my notes here, so that's why I keep looking down. I'm sorry if that bothers anybody. So, yeah, so we have to do like Administration, Organization, and Leadership. I had to read some books on this topic. I read a book called Meeting and Event Planning by Susan Friedman, right? Yeah, Friedman, and Amber Kay's Coven Craft. So I read a book about just general leading and organizing and administrating, everyday sort of group work, um, craft aside, meaning witchcraft aside, because what you practice in everyday life is going into your spirituality too. So I wanted that balance, and I didn't want that separation. Like in my last video, I told you that I didn't really believe in that sort of separate, separating the magic and your actual everyday living, because it's one to me. And that's when I read organizing and administrating and leading as coven work. I wanted to learn more about that, and I thought that Amber Kay's book was actually really great on the topic. And I haven't found many other books that talk to you about how to organize and lead a coven or a congregation, if you will. So, let me know in the comments if there are any other books that are about coven leading and or congregation leading. I would love to know those other resources because she was the only one I really found. And then, yeah, and how would I practice that in my everyday life? And so and then I wrote little essays about each book topic and what my take was on that. And I also learned about consensus, which my group here, RCGR, which I recently formed, with lots of help from my two best friends. Love them. It's called Reformed Congregation of the Goddess Roots. It's linked to Reformed Congregation of the Goddess International. Yay, I have my own like women's group. So, woohoo. Sorry, a little bit of celebration. And I'm calming down. Maybe I shouldn't drink coffee. Maybe it's just too much caffeine for me. Anyway, okay, so moving on. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit more confident and crazy with my videos, And then the fifth one is learning about feminism, because the Women's Theological Institute is a all women's safe multi-traditional space. And so learning a little bit about feminism in an all women's spirituality congregation is probably, common sense. And so I was just reading a lot of books about the topic. I read, I joined RCGC or RCG Crossroads and wrote my own views on feminism. And I believe now, ever since I joined them, I believe now women, which I didn't realize this at first and I don't know why, but women have their own innate power that only women can, or women have. Not saying that men don't have power, they do. They have their own innate power as well. I'm not trying to women are better than every other species. No, I'm not trying to be like that. I'm just saying recognizing my own power as a woman and seeing that power in other women is kind of like a magical experience in my opinion. And I'm not trying to push out any other genders or whatever. So please don't think that I'm doing that. Thank you. All right, and then And then your second one is learning about your environment, meaning not just learning about the, how do I put this? Not just learning about, where you're studying witchcraft, like, most witchcraft or Wicca based comes from Europe or, on that side of the world. But, learning about the environment and in which you live in, like your own, like say, because I live in Indiana. So I learned about, I live in southern Indiana. So I learned about southern Indiana environment, the climate, the water that our water sources, where they came from. And I learned about gardening and, which I don't really have a green thumb. Yeah. So that's kind of frustrating. But, not everybody is born with a green thumb. Some people have to accumulate a green thumb, or some people just have to paint their thumb green and hope for the best. So, yeah, and I did a lot of research on my environment and where my water comes from and where my food even comes from. And, really making those choices on whether, yes, do I want to recycle or do I not want to recycle? Or, it's just like everyday life choices that impact my craft. And then you learn about another course that is required is called CST, abbreviated, meaning counseling, support and therapy. So learning the boundaries of support and therapy and counseling, whether, like, say someone comes up to you and asks you for help, are you really qualified to help them? Can you really help them or give advice? Knowing when the time is right and when the time is not right. Like, say if somebody doesn't ask you for help and you're giving help anyway when they never even asked you for that, I mean, that's kind of stepping out of bounds, if you will, in my opinion. Because, I mean, they didn't ask you for that help or that advice, and you're giving it to them even though they never really asked. So it's always important, I learned it's always important to ask someone, if they need help or if they need advice on something. And the best advice I have ever gotten when confronted with that sort of situation is saying to someone, I'm sorry that happened to you. You didn't deserve that. And sometimes that's all somebody needs to hear. And you just have to learn to be okay with that. Don't just go into a situation and try to fix it. Just be a good listener. Being a good listener is very crucial, in my opinion. And then I also learned about, I had a really hard time finding feminist or feminism inspired therapies. So, I mean, my support group is the women that I work with, in my group, in my Southern Indiana based group, and in, Indianapolis based group, and in Wisconsin. That's like the best sort of women inspired help that I could have possibly asked for. Anyway, and then your next, this is number 8. So your next sort of required course that I had to take was personal growth. I had to write down what my goals were in life and how I wanted to achieve them, and really, really get to know what I wanted in my life. Like, what would make me, and I had to get rid of some of my fears. I didn't have to. I wanted to get rid of some of my fears, like stage fright. I still get nervous in front of the camera. Some that might, go into why I'm such a spaz. I'm not really a spaz, or why I don't like, or why I stutter. Sometimes I get nervous, even though I'm not talking to millions of eyes right now staring at me, but just talking about it kind of gives me some sort of anxiety. You know what I'm saying? It's just some anxiety. So I'm trying to, let go of that fear, because everyone gets nervous when they give speeches, like I said in my last video. Everyone gets nervous when they give speeches, and everyone is nervous when they have to perform something in front of an audience. It's just, that's how it has to be, and that's what I have to keep in mind, and that's what I learned about myself. Even though my goals changed, because, my goals were previously, I wanted to go to IU to be a folklore major. And hold on, I have to pause this. I'm back. Okay. And the last required course that I had to take was in my path that I chose, because there's 6 other paths in WTI. So the last course I took was creative activities, and it was required that I do an in-depth study of one area of creative activities. Now, I found it hard to do that because I'm more of like a, ooh, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do it all. And so I tried sewing and painting and drawing, and then I just stuck to book alterations, which I will definitely give you, or put some pictures or something, or video record or whatever it is, some of my work on that, so you can see that that's more of my calling. Um, those are all of the required courses, and I'm going to put the electives, my overview of the electives, in a different video because this one is, again, very lengthy. So, yeah, thank you for tuning in to In the Mist by Analia, and if you like my video, please like or comment below, and don't forget to hit that button and subscribe to In the Mist by Analia. And many blessings, and take care.